to start with the step-by-step instructions when knitting this stitch pattern flat. So we are going to start with the first setup row. We are going to purl X number of stitches, place the marker, and we are going to purl one, wrapping the yarn twice. This is how you would usually purl. This is just one loop on your needle, but we are going to wrap the yarn twice around the needle when we are going to purl the first stitch, just like that. You see, we created 2 loops on the right needle from one stitch, and then we are going to purl 4 stitches as usual. Come to the center of the stitch and knit 1, purl 4 to create the symmetry in the stitch pattern. And just like in the beginning, we are going to purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice around the needle, just like that. 2 loops are created. And we are going to place marker and purl to the end, to the edge stitch. This is how your work looks like at this point. We are going to flip it to the right side, and we are going to knit X number of stitches to the marker that indicates the start of this stitch pattern. Now we are going to drop the twice wrapped stitch of the left hand needle to the front of your work, knit 4 as usual, and now let's pull on this loop, making sure that it's long and stretchy enough, and place it on the left hand needle across these 4 worked stitches, and we are going to knit it as usual. And next stitch we are going to knit. We are slipping next 4 stitches with yarn in the back without working them, then drop twice wrapped stitch of the left hand needle to the front, and then slip 4 stitches back to left hand needle. We're picking up the drop stitch, again make sure to pull on it, knit it as usual, and knit 4 stitches right after it, just like that. And we are going to slip the marker and knit to the end. The stitch pattern started to form. You can see how your work looks like at this point. You will continue working in this manner, repeating these 2 last rows back and forth. So on the wrong side row, we are going to purl the stitches to the marker, slip the marker, then the first stitch we are going to purl, wrapping the yarn twice around the right hand needle, then purl 4 stitches as usual. The middle stitch we are always going to knit, and then again purl 4 for the symmetry, and the last stitch right before the marker we are going to purl, wrapping the yarn around the working needle twice, and purl to end. On this larger piece you already can see how the stitch pattern is growing, how it has been formed. I just love how it pops up against the simple stockinette stitch background. So in this row I'm going to show you another way how you can handle the elongated stitch. So instead of dropping it off, you can just slip it from left hand needle to the right one, then knit 4 stitches as usual, and then kind of change the position of those 4 stitches with the dropped stitch, just like that. And make sure to pull on the elongated stitch, place it on the left hand needle, and knit it as usual. Knit the next stitch, Then slip the 4 stitches from the left hand needle to the right one without working them. Drop the elongated stitch in front of the work. Place the 4 stitches back on the left hand needle and pull the elongated stitch across them, and then knit 5 as usual. And this is how your project looks like at this point. If you're knitting top down, you will see that the direction of your elongated stitches will change depending on the perspective, so you can play around with it. Now let's see how you can work the stitch in the round. I use this method for adding a little bit of texture to the sleeve cuff in the cardigan, and you can do the same. In this example, I'm going to place the stitch pattern in the middle of the cuff. So I'm going to need an X number of stitches, any given number of stitches. Then place a marker and work on the 11 stitches in the middle. I'm going to knit the first stitch, wrapping the yarn twice around the working needle. Then we are going to knit 4 stitches as usual. The center stitch I'm going to purl, then knit 4 next stitches as usual, and knit 1, wrapping the yarn twice right before placing the marker, just like that. Wrap twice around the working needle, and then place the stitch marker that will indicate the end of the section for the textured stitch. To the end of the round as usual. Continue knitting to the marker, slip the marker, and then drop the twice wrap stitch of the left hand needle to the front of your work, just like that. Make sure to pull on it just a little bit, and then knit 4 next stitches and pull the drop stitch across the stitches and place it on the left hand needle and knit it as usual. We are going to knit the middle stitch on this round. Now we are going to slip next 4 stitches without working them with the yarn in the back, and then drop the double wrapped stitch to the front of the work, pulling it just a little bit, and then get 4 stitches back to the left hand needle and pull on the drop stitch across those worked 4 stitches. Place it on the left hand needle, and we are going to knit 5 stitches as usual, just like that. And the rest of the piece we are working in a simple stockinette stitch. So this is how your work will start to look like after a few rounds. So you're working in a simple stockinette stitch, then you come in to the textured stitch section, slip the marker that indicates the beginning of the textured stitch, knit the first stitch, wrapping the yarn twice, and then knit 4 as usual. Get to the center stitch and purl it, and then knit 4 stitches as usual, and the last stitch right before the marker you are going to knit, wrapping the yarn twice around the working needle, just like that. Knit all the way around until you come to the textured stitch section again. Slip the marker, and then the first stitch we are going to drop off from the left hand needle and place it in front of the work, just like that, and then knit 4 stitches as usual. I feel like when knitting in the round, it is always easier to see what I'm doing because you're always working on the right side. Now place the drop stitch on the left hand needle and knit it as usual. And now we are going to knit the center stitch and slip the 4 stitches without working them to the right hand needle. Then drop the double wrapped stitch to the front of your work, and then place the slip stitches back on the left hand needle, just like that. Make sure to pull on the dropped stitch as much as you can, so you make it long and stretchy, and then place it to the left hand needle and knit 5 stitches as usual all the way to the stitch marker. And basically that's it. Those are 2 very simple rows or rounds in this case, very easy to repeat, and they create this beautiful textured stitch that you can implement in your projects. Even if you knit in a simple stockinette stitch pullover, it will be fun to add it to the sleeve or to the main body of the fabric.